The man who was about to become the most powerful executive in West African real estate stood at the center of his own celebration and ordered security to drag his ex-wife out of the building. He called her a nobody. He called her worthless. He told every powerful person in the room that she did not belong. What he did not know was that the woman he had just thrown out like garbage secretly owned the very corporation about to hand him a $15 billion contract. And if that was not devastating enough, the daughter he had abandoned as a child was about to walk through those same doors and destroy everything he had spent 20 years building. Why did billionaires greet this ordinary-looking woman with deep reverence? What empire had she been quietly constructing while he forgot she existed? And when the truth was finally revealed in front of 300 witnesses, would his career survive the night? Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. And if you love stories packed with jaw-dropping betrayals, hidden fortunes, and the kind of revenge that ruins a man forever, make sure you subscribe right now, because what happens in this story will leave you speechless. The evening sun cast a golden glow over the Echo-Atlantic skyline as luxury vehicles lined the entrance of the Continental Hotel in Victoria Island, Lagos. Inside the grand ballroom, gold chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen stars. Waiters in crisp white uniforms moved through the crowd, carrying trays of champagne. At the center of all the attention stood Chukwu Obi. At 50 years old, Chukwu looked like a man who had conquered the world. His three-piece suit was imported from Milan. His gold watch caught the light every time he raised his glass. His estate in Banana Island was valued at over $3 million. After 22 years at Skyline Properties, he was hours away from being named the company's next chief executive officer. Every person in the room wanted a piece of him. A journalist from Business Day approached him with a recorder. "Chief Obi, tonight is historic for Skyline Properties. How do you feel?" Chukwu smiled broadly. "I feel like everything I sacrificed was worth it." "What is the secret to your success?" Chukwu answered without hesitation. "You must learn to cut loose anything that drags you down. People, habits, baggage. If it slows you, you remove it." Several executives nodded approvingly. The words sounded like wisdom. But buried inside that answer was the exact cruelty that had shattered his family 2 decades earlier. Across the ballroom, Chief Adebayo Okoro watched silently. At 71, Chief Okoro had built Skyline Properties from a small office in Surulere into one of the largest real estate firms in Africa. Tonight's $15 billion joint venture with Crown Holdings would cement his legacy forever. Yet the old man seemed restless. His eyes kept drifting toward the ballroom entrance as though he was expecting someone important. Outside the hotel, a woman stepped out of a plain Toyota Camry and walked through the front doors. Adeze Nwosu. She was 47 years old. She wore a simple black skirt and a white blouse. No jewelry, no designer bag, no driver. Anyone who saw her would assume she was a mid-level accountant or a teacher attending a work function. That mistake had protected her for nearly 20 years. 2 decades earlier, Adeze and Chukwu had been married. They were young and struggling. Adeze's father, a humble bricklayer from Aba, had passed away and left her a tiny construction company with 3 employees and a single aging cement mixer. The business was drowning in debt. Bank letters arrived weekly. Suppliers refused to extend credit. Chukwu saw it as a dead end. "Sell that thing," he would say every night. "It is destroying us." "It is the only thing my father left me," Adeze would reply. "It is a burden," Chukwu argued. "No, it is his legacy." The arguments grew louder. the resentment grew deeper. Chukwu saw the company as a chain around his neck. Adeze saw it as a promise to a dead man. Eventually, the marriage broke. Chukwu walked away and chased corporate ambition. Adeze vanished from his life completely. Or so he believed. What Chukwu never discovered was that Adeze spent the next 20 years rebuilding that broken construction company with her bare hands. She worked 18-hour days. She took loans against her house. She bid on government contracts that larger firms ignored. She bought land during market crashes when everyone else was selling. She hired young engineers and trained them herself. She expanded into 4 countries. That tiny company with 3 employees slowly transformed into Crown Holdings, the most powerful privately held real estate conglomerate in West Africa. To shield herself from predators and competitors, Adeze buried her ownership beneath layers of holding companies and family trusts. Almost no one in the business world knew the true identity of Crown Holdings' owner. Meanwhile, their daughter Amara grew up watching her mother fight. While other children played after school, Amara sat in site offices learning to read blueprints. By the time she was 16, she could manage a construction crew. By 22, she held a degree in civil engineering. By 25, she had become the youngest chief executive officer in the history of Crown Holdings. But because she carried her mother's surname and had not seen her father since she was 7 years old, no one in Chukwu's world ever connected her to him. Inside the ballroom, Chukwu laughed loudly with investors and politicians. He had absolutely no idea that the 2 women he had discarded were now more powerful than every person in that room combined. And in less than 2 hours, every decision he had made over the last 20 years would crash down on him at once. Chukwu spotted Adeze from across the ballroom. The sight of her annoyed him immediately. For 20 years, she had been nothing but a faded memory. Now here she was, standing among billionaires and government officials as if she had earned the right. What irritated him even more was how people responded to her. A gray-haired businessman walked over and shook her hand warmly. A bank executive greeted her by her first name. A foreign investor leaned in and spoke to her with visible deference. Chukwu's jaw tightened. None of it made any sense. Then he noticed something else. The hotel's general manager personally approached Adeze. Instead of checking her invitation, the man bowed slightly and escorted her toward the VIP section. Adeze thanked him quietly. The interaction lasted only seconds. Most guests would not have noticed. But it planted a seed of doubt in Chukwu's mind. He brushed it aside. Tonight was his night. Nothing would ruin it. As a live band played soft Afro jazz, more guests filled the ballroom. Conversations revolved around the $15 billion Crown Holdings partnership. Everyone agreed it would transform African real estate forever. Chukwu accepted praise from every direction. "Chief Obi has a beautiful ring to it," one investor said. The room laughed. Chukwu grinned. Then he saw Adeze near the buffet table. Without thinking, he walked toward her. Several guests turned to watch. Their history was known to many in the industry. Adeze looked up as he approached. For a moment, neither spoke. Chukwu broke the silence first. "I did not expect to see you here." Adeze remained calm. "I came because what happens tonight concerns me." He laughed shortly. "Concerns you? How?" "It concerns more people than you think." Her voice carried no anger, no bitterness, just quiet certainty. That composure unsettled him. Guests nearby were listening. Chukwu felt the need to assert control. "Let me be honest, Adeze. This is not your kind of event." A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. Adeze simply looked at him. "Is that right?" Chukwu nodded. "This room is for people who build empires, not spectators." The words sat heavy in the air. For the first time, something shifted in Adeze's eyes. Not pain, not fury. Disappointment, as if she had hoped that 20 years might have changed him. Then she spoke softly. 20 years, and you still measure people with the same broken ruler." Before Chukwu could respond, she turned and walked away. Two investors watched her leave. One shook his head slowly. The other glanced at Chukwu with something close to pity. But Chukwu did not notice. He was too busy telling himself that he had just reminded his ex-wife of her place. He had no idea that the most influential people in the room had been watching his every move. The ballroom grew more crowded as the evening deepened. Executives moved toward the main stage where the historic joint venture would be signed. Cameras flashed. Investors settled into their seats. Everything was proceeding perfectly. At least, that was what Chukwu believed. Then he saw Adeze again. She was speaking quietly with Chief Okoro's most senior board member. The same man who never spoke to anyone unless it was absolutely critical. Something cracked inside Chukwu. The respect she had been receiving all night was now impossible to ignore. Without thinking about consequences, he marched across the ballroom. Conversations died as he approached. Adeze looked up with calm eyes. Chukwu forced a smile that could not hide his fury. "I think it is time we stop this charade." Nearby guests exchanged nervous glances. Adeze remained perfectly still. "What charade?" "This pretense that you belong here." The room went silent. Even the band seemed to fade. Chukwu gestured around the ballroom. "This event is for builders, not onlookers." People shifted in their seats. Adeze stared at him without blinking. Then she asked quietly, "And who exactly decides who belongs?" Chukwu laughed. "People who have actually built something meaningful." The words hit like a hammer. Several investors looked at the floor. They knew something Chukwu did not. Adeze studied his face for a long moment. Then she said softly, "Be careful, Chukwu. Arrogance has a way of making people blind." Instead of hearing the warning, he treated it as an insult. He turned toward the security team standing near the wall. "Escort her out. Now." The head of security froze. For a split second, visible uncertainty crossed his face. That hesitation did not escape the attention of several executives. It was another signal, another warning, another opportunity for Chukwu to stop and think. But he did not. "Did you not hear me?" Chukwu repeated loudly. The security chief reluctantly nodded. "Yes, sir." Adeze did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply picked up her small handbag. Before turning to leave, she looked directly at Chukwu. Her expression was not rage. It was not sorrow. It was the same disappointment she had shown 20 years ago when he walked out on their family. "I hope tonight gives you everything you have been chasing," she said quietly. Then she walked toward the exit. The ballroom doors closed behind her. For a brief moment, the room was completely silent. Then someone clapped. A few others joined. Chukwu smiled broadly. He believed he had won. He believed the distraction was over. The music returned. Glasses were raised. Conversations resumed. The atmosphere bounced back quickly. That was the strange thing. Nothing exploded. No screaming match. No dramatic confrontation. Adeze simply left. The calmness relaxed everyone, including Chukwu. 40 minutes later, guests were guided to the grand signing ceremony. The $15 billion contract sat on a polished mahogany table under bright stage lights. Chief Okoro stepped up to the microphone. "Distinguished guests," he began, "we are about to witness one of the most significant partnerships in the history of African real estate." Applause filled the ballroom. Chukwu adjusted his tie and smiled with full confidence. This was the moment he had waited for his entire career. Then Chief Okoro looked toward the ballroom entrance. "We are waiting for the final representative from Crown Holdings." The massive doors opened slowly, and the person who walked in made Chukwu's stomach drop. Every head turned. Chukwu's smile vanished. A young woman entered the room. She moved with quiet authority. Executives rose from their seats. Investors broke into applause. Chukwu stared in disbelief. The woman's face was familiar. Then recognition hit him like a wave. Amara, his daughter. The girl he had not seen in nearly 20 years. The child whose school events he had stopped attending. The daughter whose phone calls he had eventually stopped answering. For a moment, the entire ballroom seemed to dissolve around him. "Amara," he whispered. But she did not look at him. She did not smile. She did not acknowledge his existence. She walked straight toward the stage. Chief Okoro greeted her with a warm handshake. "Distinguished guests," Chief Okoro announced, "please welcome Amara Nwosu, Chief Executive Officer of Crown Holdings." The ballroom erupted. Chukwu felt his legs go weak. His daughter was the CEO of the company behind the $15 billion deal. Every forgotten year suddenly weighed 1,000 times more. But the biggest shock had not yet arrived. Amara took her seat at the signing table. The contract was placed in front of her. She did not pick up the pen. Instead, she looked at Chief Okoro. "We are still awaiting final authorization." Chukwu frowned. "Final authorization from whom?" he asked aloud. The room went completely still. Then every person turned toward the ballroom entrance. The doors opened once more. Adeze walked in. Not as a guest, not as an ex-wife, but as the person the entire night had been waiting for. Investors rose immediately. Some began applauding before she had taken 3 steps. Chief Okoro smiled proudly. "Distinguished guests, I present to you the majority owner and founder of Crown Holdings, Adeze Nwosu." The ballroom exploded with applause. Chukwu felt as though the ground had opened beneath him. Every clue suddenly connected. The investors greeting her. The general manager's bow. The security chief's hesitation. The respect. Adeze had never been an outsider. She had been the most powerful person in the entire building. The same tiny construction company he had called a worthless burden had grown into a real estate empire worth billions. Built by the woman he abandoned. Led by the daughter he forgot. Chukwu rushed forward. "Adeze, please, I did not know." Adeze looked at him with calm eyes. "You did not throw me out because you did not know who I was." The room fell deathly silent. "You threw me out because you believed I was worth nothing." Chukwu had no words. Then Amara stood. For the first time that evening, she looked directly at her father. "When I was 10, Mama told me not to hate you." Chukwu lowered his gaze. "Every birthday you forgot, she made excuses for you." His chest tightened. "Every Father's Day you ignored, she defended you." Tears blurred his vision. When you stopped calling completely, she still told me to forgive you." The silence was crushing. Then Amara delivered the final words. "You lost us long before tonight." Adeze slowly closed the contract folder. "Crown Holdings is withdrawing from this partnership." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Without Crown Holdings, the $15 billion deal collapsed instantly. Within 72 hours, Skyline Properties Board revoked Chukwu's promotion. Investors pulled out. The company's stock plummeted. 6 months later, Crown Holdings acquired Skyline Properties for a fraction of its former value. Amara became chairwoman of the combined entity. Adeze remained the largest shareholder. As for Chukwu, he faded from the industry he once believed he dominated. The most devastating revenge was never anger. It was success. The last time anyone reported seeing him, he was sitting alone on a bench outside Banana Island, watching Crown Holdings construction cranes reshape the Lagos skyline. Buildings that existed because Adeze refused to abandon her father's dream. The very dream Chukwu had once called worthless. The moral of the story is simple. Never judge a person's worth by what they wear, where they stand, or what they currently possess. The people you dismiss today may become the people who control your tomorrow. And sometimes the greatest loss is not money, power, or position. It is realizing too late that you discarded the very people who loved you when you had absolutely nothing.